What if the stories we've read in ancient texts were more than just words on a page? What if they left behind tangible traces, hidden beneath layers of earth, waiting to be uncovered? In a quiet valley nestled between two towering mountains, Mount Gerizim and Mount Ebal, lies a place where history and faith intersect. This is Shechem, a site steeped in biblical significance, mentioned in the pages of Deuteronomy and Joshua. It was here that Moses and Joshua once stood, instructing the Israelites about blessings and curses, shaping the spiritual destiny of an entire nation. But Shechem holds secrets far older than the scriptures themselves. In 1926, a German archaeologist named Ernst Seelen unearthed something extraordinary: a massive stone, weathered by time, yet undeniably deliberate in its design. At first glance, it seemed unremarkable, perhaps a simple watering trough or a remnant of forgotten architecture. But as Seelen examined it further, he realized this was no ordinary artifact. This was a sacred standing stone, a matzah, rooted in ancient rituals and worship. Its discovery would spark debates, reveal hidden temples, and even ignite conflicts among scholars. Could this stone be the same one mentioned in the Bible? And what does it tell us about the people who once called this place home? The answers lie buried, literally and figuratively, in the soil of Shechem. What if the pages of an ancient text could come alive, revealing secrets buried for millennia? Imagine standing in a quiet valley, flanked by two towering mountains, Mount Gerizim and Mount Ebal. This is Shechem, a place where history whispers from beneath the soil, where the past feels almost tangible, as though it's waiting to be uncovered. It's not just any location. It's a site steeped in biblical significance, mentioned in Deuteronomy and Joshua. Here, Moses and Joshua once stood, addressing the Israelites with words that would shape their spiritual destiny. They spoke of blessings and curses, of promises made and covenants kept. But what if this wasn't just a story confined to Scripture? What if the very stones beneath our feet could speak? In 1926, a discovery was made that would send ripples through both the archaeological and religious worlds. A German archaeologist named Ernst Seelen unearthed something extraordinary: a massive stone, weathered by centuries, but unmistakably deliberate in its design. At first glance, it seemed unremarkable, perhaps a remnant of forgotten architecture or even a simple watering trough. But as Seelen examined it further, he realized this was no ordinary artifact. This was a sacred standing stone, known in Hebrew as a matzah. It wasn't just a piece of rock. It was a relic of ancient rituals, a symbol of worship, and possibly a witness to a covenant between God and His people. The implications of this discovery are staggering. For centuries, skeptics have questioned the historical accuracy of biblical accounts, dismissing them as myth or allegory. Yet here, in the heart of Shechem, was physical evidence that seemed to align with the stories told in Scripture. Could this stone be the same one mentioned in the Bible? Was it a silent observer to the promises made by the Israelites under Joshua's leadership? The idea is both thrilling and humbling. It forces us to reconsider how we view the past and challenges us to ask deeper questions about the intersection of faith and history. But the story doesn't end there. The discovery of this stone was only the beginning. As archaeologists dug deeper, they uncovered more than just a single artifact. They found remnants of a massive sacrificial altar and a monumental building, later identified as a temple. These findings painted a vivid picture of a society deeply engaged in ritual and worship. Yet, Not all of these practices aligned with the teachings of the Bible. In fact, the temple was linked to the worship of Baal-berith, a false god that the Israelites turned to after Gideon's death. This revelation adds layers of complexity to the narrative, reminding us that human history is rarely black and white. The stone at Shechem isn't just a relic of the past. It's a bridge connecting us to a world long gone. It invites us to imagine the lives of those who once stood in this valley, offering sacrifices, making vows, and seeking meaning in their existence. It challenges us to think about the ways in which our own beliefs and rituals shape our identity. And it compels us to ask, what stories do the objects we leave behind tell about us? As you consider this discovery, let it spark your curiosity. Let it remind you that history is not just a series of dates and events, but a tapestry woven with human experiences, choices, and aspirations. The stone at Shechem is more than an archaeological find. It's a testament to the enduring quest for truth, meaning, and connection. It's a reminder that the past is never truly lost. It's simply waiting to be rediscovered. To truly understand the significance of the discovery at Shechem, we must first step back and immerse ourselves in the geography, history, and spiritual weight of this ancient site. Picture this: a valley cradled between two towering mountains, Mount Gerizim to the south and Mount Ebal to the north. These aren't just any mountains. They are landmarks etched into the biblical narrative, places where pivotal moments in Israel's history unfolded. In Deuteronomy 11, Moses instructed the Israelites to stand on these very mountains after entering the Promised Land. Half the tribes were to ascend Mount Gerizim to proclaim blessings, while the other half would climb Mount Ebal to declare curses. It was here, in this sacred space, that the Israelites reaffirmed their covenant with God, a covenant that defined their identity as a people. Shechem wasn't chosen randomly for such a momentous occasion. Its location made it a crossroads, both literally and metaphorically. Situated in the heart of Canaan, it was a meeting point for trade routes, cultures, and ideas. For centuries, it served as a hub where diverse peoples converged, exchanging goods, stories, and beliefs. But more than its strategic importance, Shechem held deep spiritual resonance. Long before the Israelites arrived, it was a place of worship, a site where ancient rituals connected people to the divine. This layered history makes Shechem a microcosm of humanity's enduring search for meaning and connection. When Joshua led the Israelites into the Promised Land, Shechem became the stage for one of the most profound moments in biblical history. In Joshua 24, he gathered the tribes at Shechem and called them to renew their covenant with God. He reminded them of their journey, from slavery in Egypt to freedom in the land flowing with milk and honey, and challenged them to choose whom they would serve. "As for me and my household," Joshua declared, "we will serve the Lord." The people responded with a resounding affirmation, vowing to remain faithful to God. It was a moment of unity, resolve, and divine promise. And it all took place in the shadow of those two mountains, Gerizim and Ebal, which stood as silent witnesses to the covenant. Now, imagine standing in that valley today. The air is still, but if you listen closely, you can almost hear echoes of Joshua's voice ringing across the landscape. You can picture the tribes gathered together, their faces reflecting a mix of hope, fear, and determination. This wasn't just a ceremony. It was a turning point. Shechem marked the beginning of a new chapter for the Israelites, a chapter filled with both triumphs and trials. Yet, it also foreshadowed the challenges they would face. Despite their fervent promises, the Israelites would later falter, turning away from God and embracing false gods like Baal-berith. This duality, the tension between faithfulness and rebellion, is woven into the very fabric of Shechem's story. The layers of meaning embedded in Shechem make it a place of profound reflection. It's not just a geographical location. It's a symbol of choice, consequence, and covenant. Every stone, every hill, seems to carry the weight of decisions made long ago. And when Seelen unearthed that sacred standing stone in 1926, he didn't just uncover an artifact. He uncovered a piece of this rich tapestry. That stone, whether it was the very witness stone mentioned in Joshua 24 or another relic of ancient worship, connects us to a time when people sought to align their lives with something greater than themselves. Shechem invites us to ask deeper questions about our own lives. What are the mountains that shape our journeys? What covenants do we make? With ourselves, with others, with the divine? And how do the choices we make ripple through time, affecting generations to come? As you reflect on this place and its history, let it inspire you to seek out the intersections of faith, culture, and identity in your own life. Let it remind you that even in silence, the past speaks volumes, if only we have ears to hear. In the end, Shechem is more than a historical site or a biblical reference. It's a mirror reflecting humanity's eternal quest for purpose and belonging. It's a reminder that the landscapes we inhabit are imbued with stories, waiting to be rediscovered and retold. So, the next time you find yourself at a crossroads, in life or in thought, remember Shechem. Remember the mountains that frame our choices and the stones that bear witness to our promises. Because in understanding Shechem, we begin to understand ourselves. At the heart of Shechem's story lies a discovery that feels almost otherworldly. A stone, unassuming at first glance, yet brimming with layers of meaning. When German archaeologist Seelen unearthed this artifact in 1926, it was initially dismissed as something mundane, perhaps a watering trough or a remnant of ancient infrastructure. But as he examined it more closely, the truth began to emerge. This was no ordinary stone. It was a sacred standing stone, known in Hebrew as a matzeva. These stones were not mere decorations or utilitarian objects. They were deeply symbolic, often serving as markers of divine presence, witnesses to covenants, or focal points for worship. Imagine the moment Seelen realized what he had found. Here was a relic that connected the physical world to the spiritual, a tangible link to rituals and beliefs that stretched back thousands of years. The stone itself was large, carved with intention, and positioned in a way that suggested it held great significance. Its surface bore the marks of time, weathered by wind, rain, and centuries of human interaction, but its essence remained intact. This wasn't just a piece of rock. It was a silent witness to history, a fragment of a world where the boundaries between the earthly and the divine were far more fluid than we might imagine today. The concept of a standing stone like this one is fascinating because it reveals so much about the people who created it. In ancient cultures, these stones often represented a connection to the gods or served as memorials to significant events. They were places where heaven and earth seemed to meet, where the sacred could be accessed and honored. For the Israelites, such stones were deeply tied to their covenant with God. In fact, the Bible mentions standing stones in several contexts, including Jacob's use of a stone as a pillar after his dream at Bethel, Genesis 28:18, and Joshua's erection of a stone as a witness to the covenant at Shechem, Joshua 24:27. Could this stone be the very one described in Joshua? The possibility is tantalizing, offering a rare moment where archaeological evidence aligns with biblical narrative. But let's pause for a moment and consider the craftsmanship behind this stone. Someone, long ago, took great care to shape it, to position it, and to imbue it with purpose. Who were these people? What did they believe about the divine? Did they see this stone as a conduit for communication with God, or as a symbol of their commitment to Him? These questions draw us into the lives of those who once stood in Shechem, offering sacrifices, making vows, and seeking answers to life's deepest mysteries. The stone becomes more than an object. It becomes a portal into their world, inviting us to imagine their hopes, fears, and aspirations. Yet, the discovery of this stone also raises profound questions about interpretation. Was it truly a sacred object, or could it have served another function? Some scholars argue that standing stones were sometimes associated with pagan practices, particularly in contexts where the Israelites turned away from God and embraced foreign deities. In Judges 9, for example, we read about the Israelites worshipping Baal-berith, a false god whose name means Lord of the Covenant. Could this stone have been part of that later period, when the Israelites broke their covenant with God and sought alliances with other powers? Or was it always a symbol of faithfulness, a reminder of the promises made under Joshua's leadership? These ambiguities are what make the stone so compelling. It doesn't offer easy answers. Instead, it invites us to wrestle with complexity. It challenges us to think critically about how we interpret the past and how we connect ancient artifacts to the stories we tell ourselves. Is the stone a testament to faith, a relic of rebellion, or something else entirely? The beauty of archaeology and of history itself is that it leaves room for wonder, for debate, and for discovery. As you reflect on this sacred stone, allow yourself to feel its weight, not just physically, but metaphorically. Imagine the hands that shaped it, the eyes that gazed upon it, and the voices that may have spoken prayers around it. Consider how it fits into the larger tapestry of Shechem's story, a story of blessings and curses, of faithfulness and failure. This stone is more than a relic of the past. It's a mirror reflecting humanity's enduring quest for meaning. It reminds us that even in silence, objects can speak volumes, if only we take the time to listen. In the end, the sacred stone of Shechem is a call to curiosity. It urges us to dig deeper, to ask harder questions, and to seek connections between the tangible and the intangible. It challenges us to think about the symbols we create in our own lives, whether they're monuments, traditions, or personal rituals, and what they reveal about our values and beliefs. So, as you ponder this discovery, let it inspire you to look beyond the surface. Let it remind you that every artifact has a story, and every story has the power to transform how we see the world. The discovery of the sacred stone at Shechem was only the beginning. As Aaron Celine continued his excavations, he unearthed something even more astonishing: a massive sacrificial altar and a monumental building that would later be identified as a temple. This revelation added layers of complexity to the story of Shechem, transforming it from a site of biblical significance into a place where ancient rituals, worship, and power converged. The temple, in particular, became a focal point for understanding not just the spiritual life of the people who once inhabited this valley, but also their struggles with faithfulness and rebellion. Imagine standing before this ancient structure, its stones weathered by time, yet still radiating an aura of sanctity. The altar was immense, designed to accommodate large-scale sacrifices, burnt offerings, grain offerings, and libations meant to honor the divine. But here's the twist. This wasn't a temple dedicated to the God of Israel. Instead, it was associated with the worship of Baal-berith, a false god whose name translates to Lord of the Covenant. The irony is striking. In a place like Shechem, where Joshua had called the Israelites to renew their covenant with Yahweh, later generations turned away from him and embraced idolatry. This temple stands as a testament to the fragility of human faith and the ease with which people can abandon their commitments when faced with fear, temptation, or societal pressure. To fully grasp the significance of this discovery, we need to delve into the historical context. After Gideon's death, as recounted in Judges 9, the Israelites began to worship Baal-berith, constructing altars and temples in his honor. Abimelech, one of Gideon's sons, used this shift in allegiance to consolidate power, enlisting the support of Shechem's inhabitants to declare himself king. The temple of Baal-berith became both a religious and political center, symbolizing the Israelites' departure from the covenant they had made under Joshua. It's a sobering reminder that faith isn't static. It requires constant vigilance and renewal. Without those efforts, even the most profound promises can erode over time. But what does this temple reveal about the people who built it? For one, it highlights their desire for connection, to feel close to the divine, to seek protection, prosperity, and meaning. Yet, it also underscores their vulnerability to external influences. The worship of Baal-berith wasn't an isolated phenomenon. It reflected broader cultural trends in Canaan, where neighboring peoples venerated similar deities. The Israelites, living at the crossroads of civilizations, were constantly exposed to these influences. Over time, they began to adopt practices that contradicted their own beliefs, blending them with elements of foreign religions. This syncretism, the merging of different belief systems, is a recurring theme in human history, and Shechem provides a vivid example of its consequences. The temple's architecture further deepens our understanding of its role. Massive stones formed its foundation, suggesting that it was built to endure. Its design likely included spaces for priests, worshippers, and offerings, creating a sense of order and ritual. Inside, incense may have filled the air, mingling with the sounds of prayers and chants. Outside, the sacrificial altar would have been the site of dramatic ceremonies, where animals were offered in hopes of appeasing Baal-berith. These details paint a picture of a community deeply invested in their newfound faith, even if it led them astray. Yet, the temple's presence raises uncomfortable questions. Why did the Israelites turn away from Yahweh, who had delivered them from slavery and guided them through the wilderness? Was it simply a matter of convenience, or did deeper issues drive their apostasy? Perhaps they felt abandoned during times of hardship, seeking solace in gods they believed could offer immediate solutions. Or maybe they succumbed to the allure of power and wealth, aligning themselves with deities associated with fertility and abundance. Whatever the reasons, the temple at Shechem serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of compromise and the seductive pull of false promises. For modern audiences, this discovery invites reflection on our own lives. Are there areas where we've compromised our values, knowingly or unknowingly? Do we chase after temporary fixes rather than enduring truths? The Temple of Baal-berith challenges us to examine the foundations upon which we build our lives, spiritually, morally, and socially. It reminds us that every choice has consequences, shaping not only our individual destinies, but also the legacies we leave behind. In the end, the temple at Shechem is more than an archaeological find. It's a mirror reflecting humanity's eternal struggle between fidelity and folly. It speaks to the tension between what we know to be true and what we are tempted to believe. And it calls us to remember that while structures may crumble and stones may fall, the covenants we make with ourselves, with others, and with the divine are what truly define us. So, as you consider this discovery, let it inspire you to hold fast to your convictions, to resist the lure of false idols, and to seek a faith that endures no matter the challenges you face. The discovery of the sacred stone and the temple at Shechem might have seemed like a triumph for archaeology, but it also sparked one of the most dramatic conflicts in the field's history. This wasn't just a clash over interpretations or academic theories. It was a battle over meaning, identity, and the very essence of how we understand the past. At the center of this conflict were two men, Ernst Seelen, the German archaeologist who unearthed the artifacts, and Dr. Gabriel Welter, another prominent figure in the excavation team. Their disagreement wasn't merely professional. It became deeply personal, exposing fault lines in how scholars approach ancient discoveries. Seelen had always viewed his work through a lens that respected both historical context and biblical narratives. To him, the stone and the temple weren't just remnants of an ancient civilization. They were tangible evidence of the stories told in Scripture. He believed these findings could bridge the gap between faith and science, offering validation to those who saw the Bible as more than allegory. But Welter rejected this perspective entirely. For him, archaeology was strictly a secular discipline, divorced from religious interpretation. He argued that attributing biblical significance to the artifacts was speculative at best and irresponsible at worst. According to Welter, the stone and the temple were simply products of their time, objects tied to pagan rituals and regional customs, with no direct connection to the Israelites' covenant with God. The tension between the two men reached a breaking point when Welter took an action so extreme that it shocked even seasoned archaeologists. In a fit of defiance against Seelen's biblical interpretation, he ordered part of the sacred stone to be destroyed. It's difficult to fathom such an act today, especially given our modern emphasis on preserving cultural heritage. But in that moment, Welter's actions revealed something deeper, a fear perhaps that allowing the stone to be seen as a biblical artifact would undermine the purity of scientific inquiry. By destroying it, he sought to erase any possibility of linking the discovery to the scriptural narrative. Yet, in doing so, he also erased part of humanity's shared history, silencing a voice that had endured for millennia. This conflict raises profound questions about the role of bias in archaeology and history. Can we ever truly separate our personal beliefs from our professional work? Is it possible to approach ancient artifacts objectively, or are we inevitably shaped by the lenses through which we view the world? For Seelen, the stone was a testament to faith, a physical reminder of promises made and broken. For Welter, it was a symbol of superstition, unworthy of being elevated to the status of divine witness. Both perspectives are valid in their own ways, yet they represent fundamentally opposing philosophies about the nature of truth and interpretation. What makes this story so compelling is its universality. The debate between Seelen and Welter mirrors broader societal struggles over how we interpret the past. Should history be viewed through the lens of religion, culture, or pure empiricism? And who gets to decide which narrative prevails? These questions resonate far beyond the confines of Shechem, touching every corner of human experience. Whether we're examining ancient ruins, studying texts, or reflecting on our own lives, we constantly grapple with competing versions of reality. The destruction of part of the sacred stone serves as a stark reminder of the dangers of letting ideology override curiosity, and the importance of preserving diverse perspectives. Yet, despite Welter's efforts to suppress the biblical connection, the stone continued to speak. Its fragmented form still bore witness to the rituals, beliefs, and choices of those who came before us. Even in its damaged state, it refused to be silenced. This resilience is what makes the story of Shechem so powerful. It reminds us that history is not static. It is alive, dynamic, and open to reinterpretation. Each generation brings new tools, technologies, and insights to bear on the past, uncovering truths that previous eras may have overlooked or deliberately ignored. As you reflect on this conflict, consider the implications for your own life. How often do we cling to rigid interpretations of the world, dismissing alternative viewpoints without truly engaging with them? What might we lose when we allow ideological battles to overshadow the pursuit of knowledge? The story of Celan and Welter challenges us to embrace complexity, to hold space for multiple perspectives, and to recognize that truth is rarely black and white. It invites us to ask difficult questions, not only about the past, but also about ourselves. In the end, the conflict over the sacred stone at Shechem is a microcosm of humanity's ongoing quest for understanding. It reminds us that the search for truth is messy, imperfect, and often fraught with disagreement. But it is precisely in these moments of tension that growth occurs. By confronting our biases, listening to others, and remaining open to new possibilities, we can move closer to a fuller, richer understanding of the world and of ourselves. So, as you ponder this chapter of Shechem's story, let it inspire you to seek wisdom, foster dialogue, and honor the enduring power of discovery. The sacred stone and the temple at Shechem are more than just archaeological discoveries. They are threads woven into the fabric of biblical history, connecting us to events described in Judges 8 and 9. These chapters recount a pivotal moment when the Israelites turned away from their covenant with God and embraced the worship of Baal-berith, a false deity whose influence would shape their destiny for generations. The alignment between these biblical accounts and the physical evidence unearthed by Aaron Celan is nothing short of remarkable. It bridges the gap between faith and science, offering a rare glimpse into how ancient texts and tangible artifacts can illuminate one another. Imagine reading the story of Abimelech in Judges 9, and then standing before the very altar where his followers may have offered sacrifices to Baal-berith. This isn't speculative fiction. It's a convergence of narrative and reality that challenges us to rethink how we approach history. In Judges, we learn that after Gideon's death, the Israelites abandoned their devotion to Yahweh and began worshiping foreign gods. They built altars, erected temples, and sought protection from deities they believed could provide prosperity and security. The temple discovered at Shechem fits seamlessly into this context, serving as a physical manifestation of the spiritual rebellion described in Scripture. Could the sacrificial altar, uncovered by Celan, be the same one mentioned in Judges? Could the sacred stone have been a witness to the broken covenant? These questions don't diminish the power of the discovery. Instead, they amplify it, inviting us to explore the interplay between text and artifact. What makes this correlation so compelling is its complexity. On the surface, it seems like a straightforward validation of biblical accuracy, a triumph for those who view the Bible as a historical document. But dig deeper, and you'll find layers of nuance that challenge simplistic interpretations. For instance, the temple at Shechem wasn't just a place of idolatrous worship, it was also a political center. Abimelech used it to consolidate power, leveraging the people's newfound allegiance to Baal-berith to declare himself king. This blending of religion and politics reflects a recurring theme in human history: the ways in which spiritual practices are often co-opted for personal or societal gain. The temple becomes not only a site of theological significance, but also a symbol of corruption, ambition, and moral compromise. Yet, even in its role as a monument to apostasy, the temple holds profound lessons for us today. It reminds us that faith is fragile, that even the most solemn promises can falter under pressure. The Israelites' decision to turn away from God wasn't an overnight transformation. It was the result of gradual erosion, fueled by fear, complacency, and external influences. Their story serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of losing sight of our core values. It asks us to consider: what idols do we worship in our modern lives? Are there areas where we've prioritized convenience, wealth, or power over integrity and purpose? Moreover, the alignment between the biblical narrative and the archaeological findings underscores the importance of interdisciplinary exploration. Too often, faith and science are pitted against each other, portrayed as opposing forces vying for supremacy. Yet, here we see them working in harmony, each enriching the other. The stone and the temple provide physical evidence that complements the written word, while the biblical account offers context and meaning that deepen our understanding of the artifacts. Together, they create a richer, more holistic picture of the past, one that transcends the limitations of either discipline alone. This synthesis of faith and reason invites us to adopt a more integrative approach to knowledge. Rather than dismissing one perspective in favor of another, we should seek points of connection, moments where different fields intersect to reveal greater truths. The story of Shechem demonstrates that history is not confined to dusty relics or ancient manuscripts. It lives and breathes in the spaces where these elements converge. It challenges us to think critically, to question assumptions, and to remain open to new insights, whether they come from archaeology, theology, or any other field of study. As you reflect on the biblical correlation of the stone and the temple, allow yourself to feel the weight of their significance. These aren't just objects frozen in time. They are witnesses to humanity's enduring quest for meaning, belonging, and transcendence. They remind us that every choice has consequences, not only for individuals, but for entire communities. And they call us to examine our own lives, asking whether we are building foundations rooted in truth or constructing altars to false gods. In the end, the alignment between Judges 8 and 9 and the discoveries at Shechem is a testament to the power of storytelling. Whether through scripture or archaeology, stories shape how we understand ourselves and the world around us. They connect us to the past, ground us in the present, and inspire us to imagine a better future. So, as you ponder this chapter of Shechem's story, let it spark your curiosity. Let it challenge you to dig deeper, to seek connections, and to honor the enduring legacy of those who came before us. Because in uncovering their stories, we uncover pieces of our own. The story of Shechem doesn't end with Celine's groundbreaking discoveries or the dramatic conflict with Dr. Gabriel Welter. In fact, it was only the beginning of a much larger journey, one that would span decades and involve multiple generations of archaeologists, historians, and scholars. Later excavations, led by figures like G. Ernest Wright, brought new insights and interpretations, further solidifying the connection between the artifacts unearthed at Shechem and the biblical narrative. These efforts not only validated Celine's initial findings, but also expanded our understanding of this ancient site, revealing its profound significance in both historical and spiritual terms. G. Ernest Wright, an American archaeologist renowned for his work in biblical lands, approached Shechem with a fresh perspective. Unlike Welter, who dismissed any religious implications of the findings, Wright embraced the possibility that the stone and temple could indeed be linked to the events described in Joshua and Judges. His team conducted meticulous excavations, uncovering additional layers of evidence that painted a more comprehensive picture of Shechem's role in Israelite history. Among their discoveries were remnants of city walls, gates, and inscriptions that pointed to Shechem as a thriving urban center during the time of the patriarchs and later periods. Each artifact added depth to the narrative, reinforcing the idea that Shechem wasn't just a random location. It was a place where pivotal moments in biblical history unfolded. One of Wright's most significant contributions was his reinterpretation of the sacred stone. While Celine had identified it as a standing stone, or matseva, Wright went further, suggesting it might be the very witness stone mentioned in Joshua 24:27. According to the biblical account, after renewing the covenant with God, Joshua set up a stone beneath the oak tree near the sanctuary and declared, "Behold, this stone shall be a witness against us, for it has heard all the words of the Lord, which he spoke to us." This statement transforms the stone from a mere object into a symbol of accountability, a silent guardian of promises made and broken. Wright's interpretation gave the stone a voice, allowing it to speak across centuries about the choices and consequences faced by the Israelites. But Wright's work didn't stop there. He also explored the broader cultural and political dynamics of Shechem, shedding light on why it became such a contested site throughout history. Shechem wasn't just a religious hub. It was a strategic crossroads, a meeting point for trade routes and ideologies. Its central location made it a melting pot of cultures, where Canaanite traditions mingled with Israelite beliefs. This diversity explains why the Israelites struggled to remain faithful to Yahweh while living in Shechem. They were constantly exposed to foreign influences that challenged their covenantal identity. Wright's research highlighted the tension between assimilation and separation, a theme that resonates deeply in today's globalized world. What makes these later excavations so compelling is how they build upon earlier discoveries, creating a richer tapestry of understanding. Each layer of soil removed reveals another chapter in Shechem's story, connecting dots that once seemed disparate. For instance, the sacrificial altar and temple associated with Baal-berith now appear less as isolated relics and more as part of a continuum, a reflection of humanity's ongoing search for meaning. The stones, altars, and inscriptions aren't static objects. They are fragments of a living history, inviting us to piece together the puzzle of who we are and where we come from. These findings also underscore the importance of collaboration in archaeology. No single discovery can tell the whole story. It takes multiple perspectives, disciplines, and methodologies to create a complete picture. Wright's work complemented Celine's, filling gaps and answering questions that had lingered for decades. Together, their efforts demonstrate that progress isn't linear. It's iterative, requiring patience, perseverance, and humility. Even when conflicts arise, as they did between Celine and Welter, the pursuit of truth ultimately prevails if we remain committed to open dialogue and rigorous inquiry. As you reflect on the legacy of these excavations, consider what they reveal about the nature of discovery itself. Archaeology isn't just about unearthing artifacts. It's about uncovering stories, Stories that connect us to our ancestors, challenge our assumptions, and inspire us to think more deeply about our place in the world. The stone at Shechem, once thought to be a simple watering trough, turned out to be a witness to covenants, a marker of faith, and a symbol of human frailty. It reminds us that even the smallest details can hold immense significance if we take the time to look closely. In the end, the story of Shechem is a testament to the enduring power of curiosity. Whether through the lens of faith, science, or history, it invites us to ask bigger questions. Who are we? What do we value? And how do the choices we make today shape the future? As new technologies and methodologies emerge, the potential for discovery grows exponentially. Perhaps one day, someone will stand in Shechem and uncover yet another layer of its story, a story that continues to evolve with each passing generation. So, as you ponder this final chapter of Shechem's tale, let it ignite your imagination. Let it remind you that the past is never truly lost. It's simply waiting to be rediscovered. And let it inspire you to join the quest for knowledge, whether by exploring ancient ruins, studying texts, or engaging in thoughtful conversations. Because in seeking to understand Shechem, we begin to understand ourselves. And that is the greatest discovery of all. As we reflect on the story of Shechem and the sacred stone, it's hard not to feel a sense of awe at the intersection of history, faith, and human curiosity. What struck me most is how this discovery challenges us to think deeply about the narratives we inherit. Whether you approach this story from a religious, historical, or purely intellectual perspective, it forces us to confront questions that transcend time. Who were these ancient people, and what did their rituals and beliefs reveal about their understanding of the divine? How do we reconcile archaeological evidence with the stories passed down through generations? These are not just academic inquiries. They are profoundly human ones. The key lesson here is the importance of seeking truth, even when it's complex or uncomfortable. The stone at Shechem reminds us that our past is often richer and more nuanced than we imagine. It invites us to embrace curiosity over certainty, humility over dogma. We learn that history isn't static. It's alive, layered, and open to interpretation. And perhaps most importantly, we see how interconnected we are with those who came before us. Their struggles, choices, and beliefs have shaped the world we live in today. So, what can you do with this knowledge? I encourage you to dig deeper, literally and metaphorically. Explore the texts, visit museums, or engage in conversations with others who have different perspectives. Question your assumptions and be willing to sit with uncertainty. Share what you've learned here today with someone else. Spark a dialogue that might lead to new insights for both of you. In the end, stories like this one remind us that the search for meaning is a journey, not a destination. Let's walk it together, with open minds, open hearts, and an unrelenting desire to understand.